Let's talk to Fleur Hassan Nahoum, Special Envoy for the Israeli Foreign Ministry and Jerusalem's former Deputy Mayor. Fleur, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Very well indeed. Thanks very much for talking to us. It's been an interesting few days, hasn't it? I mean, Benjamin Netanyahu, I think, has kind of cemented his presence now as perhaps what I'm calling him, the world's policeman. You know, he seems to be doing all of the dirty work that that the US formerly might have done, that NATO formerly might have done. He's going after everybody who can harm Israel, and I think personally that it's a great thing.
I totally agree with you, Mike. First of all, let's look at the micro. We've been suffering from the 8th of October from missiles from Lebanon into Israel, so much so that we have 70,000 displaced people in our own country who can't live 10 kilometers from the border. Right. So imagine if Britain was being, bombarded by Calais and Dover, you had to evacuate the entire Dover. That's what we're dealing with right now. Secondly, of course, Hezbollah is the main and strongest proxy of the Islamic Republic of Iran, who wants to do its dirty work of really getting rid of the United States or any type of liberal democracies from the Middle East and eventually from the world. They make it very clear. They say death to Israel, death to America. And so Hezbollah is really their strongest arm. Another arm, of course, is Hamas. The other arm is the Houthis. And, of course, now they've got their noses in Iraq with their Shia militias and also government power. And so Iran is slowly, through its proxies, taking over the region. And they've got really big ambitions. And so, going in and saying to Hezbollah, enough is enough, is doing two things. One is saying to Iran, you've reached your limit. And secondly, it's giving the Lebanese people a chance to rid themselves from this terrible Islamic repressive regime that essentially has destroyed Lebanon.
It really has. And I speak to many Lebanese people who are very pleased about the fact that Nasrallah and his ghastly crowd of criminal enterprises and terrorists have been destroyed. Somebody said to me the other day, the people who are now in charge of Hezbollah were not thought important enough a few weeks ago to even have a pager. So, I mean, the idea that they are in some ways...
That's a brilliant thing.
It is. I mean, I'm saying, look, these guys don't know what they're doing. The idea that they can threaten Israel now, I think, is gone. Iran have clearly decided to bottle it because they know that they can't really fight Israel because Israel has quite rightly said to them, we can reach you wherever you are, because it's been a massively successful act of military intelligence, hasn't it?
Absolutely. And that also shows, Mike, how infiltrated we are into these countries, which means there's people in these countries who are working so-called for the government who are also working for Israeli intelligence services. That shows how desperate they are also to get rid of their own regime. Yesterday, there was a report that the guy in Iran in charge of dealing with defending Iran and Lebanon from Mossad was actually working for the Mossad. I mean, that was just a report. It hasn't been confirmed. But, it could be true, and that would be incredibly bizarre.
Yeah, absolutely. So where do you think this goes now in the next sort of few days? Because, of course, a lot of people in the West are worried that it could escalate into something bigger. I don't think that's going to happen, but clearly, there is going to be repercussions. I mean, some people are worried in Western Europe that the repercussions might happen in countries like Britain or countries like Germany or even countries like the USA, where they seemingly are backing Netanyahu.
Well, last night, the Israeli army went in, actually for the first time, or at least officially for the first time, to try and push Hezbollah infrastructure and troops back. But, Mike, this could end in an hour if they just complied with Resolution 1701, which, of course, the UN is completely toothless. They had nothing to do with the Americans and everybody else. Just let Hezbollah creep down to the border when, after 2006, this resolution was signed so that there would be no military presence by Hezbollah south of the Litani River. So they're currently in contravention of a UN resolution that the UN had never had any interest in helping us get done. And this is where we've gotten to.
Well, I think part of what happened at the weekend was partially, I think, due to the Netanyahu's treatment at the UN. When he got up to speak, all of these people walked out of the room, and you kind of go, what are we playing, like 6-year-old politics here? What's wrong with you? And some of the responses in America certainly from the sort of campuses and some of the so-called pro-Palestine crowd, actually mourning the death of one of the most disgraceful and disgusting terrorists in the world, just tells you exactly how screwed up they all are, doesn't it?
They're so screwed up. I mean, not to mention the fact that Hezbollah went into Syria in the civil war, 7,000 troops. They killed and tortured so many innocent Syrians. They've done the same in Lebanon. I've got a friend, a Lebanese friend here in Israel whose family ran away from Lebanon, and he talks about the torture that his family went through. They've ruined the country. Hassan Nasrallah was the emissary of the supreme leader of Iran, and they ruined the country. Economically, the country is on the verge of collapse. Nothing to do with Israel. 4 years ago, they'd had this horrible explosion, if you remember, Mike, in Beirut, where they put this kind of arms factory, and they killed so many people. This country is on the verge of collapse because of Hezbollah using it as its terrorist base. So there's an opportunity here, not just for Lebanon, but for the whole world to understand that the Islamic Republic of Iran today is what Hitler was in the 1930s, when the whole world had an appeasement strategy. What are we going to do? This is the crossroads. What is the world going to do?
Exactly right. Fleur Hassan Nahoum, thank you very much indeed, Special Envoy for the Israeli Foreign Ministry in Jerusalem's former Deputy Mayor. Great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed.